Dann Linney schlug Corbell bewusstlos. Linney, der gerade dabei war, das Verbrechen zu begehen, wurde zufällig von Corbell überrascht, woraufhin Linney diesen mit einer Blumenvase niederschlug. So kam es zu diesem Vorfall. Der vorliegenden Beweisen nach zu urteilen, war der Vorfall bereits geschehen, als Linney in den Tunnel zurückkehrte. Alles, was er sah, war das Kleid von Halsey, was ihn ziemlich
Lenny
verwirrt
did
hat.
not take part in the underground altercation. He only witnessed traces of the aftermath.
Attention!
Nicht
Ace
Paimon.
Detective Paimon has something to say! When the countdown started, Lenny did indeed go into the tunnel. But he immediately used a vent to access the Opera House basement, which is where the underground core of the Oratrice is stored. Once he reached that area, he heard a voice in what should have been an empty room. Since he felt something was amiss, he returned immediately. The crime scene had already developed by the time he reached the tunnel again, and in order to complete the magic trick, he did not remain there for any length of time. Finally, he reached the surface, and that was when the accident happened from his point of view. Therefore, he's innocent!
So, alles erstmal erfolgreich widerlegt. So, dann können wir das ja erstmal verlassen und gucken mal jetzt. Es wird noch weitergehen.
Paimon did it! Paimon actually managed to say all that! Oh, wasn't it awesome?
In other words, you believe that he knew nothing of the incident?
That's right!
Außerdem halte ich die Argumentation der Klägerin für fehlerhaft.
My reasoning?
Die Requisiten auf der Bühne wurden absichtlich von jemandem manipuliert. Aber du behauptest, Corbell sei zufällig auf Linney gestoßen.
If that's the case, then if Carol hadn't entered the tunnel, who was the entire setup meant to kill? Assuming that what you say is true, Lenny only needed to kidnap the young girl to cause a new disappearance case. What would the point of killing someone on stage be?
Ja, das ist richtig.
Oh, they have a point.
That's right, you tell him! And that's why they're partners of mine. They've managed to turn things around.
Absolut, ne? Da wollte ich die ganze Zeit schon mal drauf drücken. Ah, okay, dann kann ich das mal so aufrufen. Alles klar.
Well, your denial is very strident, I'll give you that. But what proof do you have to back your claims?
Erinnerst du dich noch dran, wie du Linneys Alibi widerlegt hast?
Of course I do. If he had been in the magic box the whole time, how could he have not heard that sound? Why do you ask? You're saying that he wasn't?
Deine Aussage ist jetzt zu meiner Waffe geworden. Deine Aussage ist nun zu meinem entscheidenden Hinweis geworden. Komm. Nimm mal Waffe. Na, der fährt die bestimmt drauf ab. Das ist ein bisschen wuschig. So, Entschuldigung. Was ist meine Aussage? Von den drei. Informationen über die Identität des vermissten Mädchens. Ne, seltsames Geräusch während der Zuschauer verließ niemand hier das Opernhaus. Wäre eigentlich immer eine Waffe, ne?
Are you sure we don't need to give this more thought? Paimon thinks there's something off here.
Natürlich, das scheiß Geräusch.
That's right! Lenny wasn't in the box or in the tunnel. That's why he didn't hear anything strange during the performance. This means that when the crime happened, Lenny had already entered the basement via the vent. The same clue you used to disprove his alibi has now become I'm the best proof! How do you like that?
Well played. To think you'd use such logic.
Verdammt.
Well then, if it wasn't Linny who committed the crimes, then who was it?
Das ist immer die große Frage, ne? Der Täter war. Wähle die Zahlräder auf dem Bildschirm, um die entsprechenden Fallabfragen anzuzeigen. Wähle die jeweiligen Antworten und fülle alle freien Fälle aus, um die Richtigkeit einer Schlussfolgerung zu prüfen. Im Fall eines Fehlers musst du erneut aus den verbleibenden Möglichkeiten wählen. Sobald alle Fragen richtig beantwortet wurden, ist die Beweiskette abgeschlossen. Okay, den Ermittlungen der Gedärme zufolge entzündeten entzündeten die vor dem Ende der Zaubershow gezündeten Feuerwerkskörper das Seil, an dem der Wassertank befestigt war, wodurch dieser herunterfiel und Corals Tod verursachte. Ja. Nachdem Lyney von jeglichem Verdacht freigesprochen wurde, wäre da nur noch die restlichen Mitglieder der Zauberertruppe, die sich an dem Zauberrequisiten hätten zu schaffen machen können. Lyney erklärt ausführlich, wie der Zaubertrick funktionieren sollte. Mithilfe des doppelten beschichteten Schankes sollte das ausgewählte Mädchen aus dem Publikum, das sich in dem Schrank befand, durch einen Tunnel auf die andere Seite transportiert werden. Lyney selbst sollte diesen Tunnel ebenfalls nutzen, um auf die andere Seite zu gelangen. Währenddessen übernahmen Lynette nach dem Kostümwechsel und der Assistent gemeinsam die Interaktion auf der Bühne. Das Kleid der vermissten Halsey wurde aus einem unbekannten Grund im Tunnel zurückgelassen. Achso, oh, ich wähle die ganze Zeit was aus. Oh. Warte. Wähle einen beliebigen Hinweis. Ah, ich hab's eben verkackt.
Could there have been a third person involved? Is that really a possibility?
Ja, immer noch. Vielleicht aber auch Halsey selbst.
Halsey is the missing person and an ordinary audience member. Or did she have her own scheme all along? The deceased's name is Cowell, Linny's assistant. He would have been able to tamper with the equipment.
Schlussfolgerung ist richtig. Okay, ich habe die ganze Zeit vor irgendwas angeklickt. Scheiße. Okay, aber gut.
Huh? That can't be right. Are you serious? The killer was, in fact, Cowell, the deceased!
Oh, is that so? How interesting! Let's hear your reasoning then.
What I must do next is recreate the truth. What Cowell did, and how he went from would-be perpetrator to victim.
Ja. Okay, wie könnte man vorher wissen, dass Lyney keine Möglichkeit hatte, das Verbrechen zu verhindern? Oh, durch Insider wahrscheinlich, oder?
It would have been tough for both people to fit into that vent. They would likely have bumped into Linny as well. The sound we heard may have come from a clash between the missing Halsey and the criminal. No one entered or left the Opera House through its entrances. So where would the criminal have wanted to take Halsey? Linny was not in the tunnel at that moment, which gave our criminal ample time. The deceased's name is Cowell, Linny's assistant. He would have been able to tamper with the equipment. Halsey's clothing was in the tunnel, so there must have been some fear that she would attract attention.
Ja. Okay, also wie könnte man vorher wissen, dass Lyney keine Möglichkeit hatte, das Verbrechen zu verhindern? Was aus diesen Dingern hier? Also er kann die Requisiten natürlich verändert haben, das ist logisch.
No one entered or left the opera house through its entrance.
Quatsch, das hat damit nichts zu tun.
The sound we heard may have come from a... It would have been tough for both people to fit into that vent. They would likely have bumped into Linny as well.
Für zwei Personen wäre es schwierig gewesen, gleichzeitig die Lüftungsöffnung zu verwenden. Wahrscheinlich wären sie dabei auf Lyney gestoßen.
Linny was not in the tunnel at that moment, which gave our criminal ample time. The deceased's name is Cowell, Linny's assistant.
Er war halt eben der Assistent, ne? Deswegen hat er davon was gewusst, dass er da unten nicht drin ist. Wie lässt sich beweisen, dass der Tunnel zu einer anderen dass es im Tunnel zu einer anderen Auseinandersetzung kam? Das Geräusch.
The sound we heard may have come from a clash between them.
Nehmen wir auf. Wer ist der einzige Hauptverdächtige?
The deceased's name is Cowell, Linny's assistant.
Ja, dann kann er oben nicht sein.
Linny was not in the tunnel at that moment. It would have been tough for both people to fit into that vent. They would likely have...
Und wo ist die vermisste Halsey hin verschwunden?
No one entered or left the opera house through its entrances.
Ganz einfach mal, ist aber falsch. Die beiden sind falsch. Okay, also die beiden anderen Sachen sind schon richtig. Wie könnte man vorher wissen, dass ja, durch ihn selbst halt eben dann eigentlich,
Linny
ne?
was not in the tunnel at that...
Er hätte es sagen können.
It would have been tough for both people to fit into that vent. They would likely...
Wahrscheinlich dadurch. Okay, also nur durch das Kleid. Hä?
Halsey's clothing was in the tunnel, so there must have been some fear that she would attract attention.
Die Folgerung ist auch falsch. Der Täter muss die Methoden hinter Lynneys Zauber gut gekannt haben und in der Lage gewesen sein, Modifikationen an den Requisiten vorzunehmen. Scheiß Wort, ne? Abgesehen davon, wie er starb, verfügte Corwell über alle Mittel, die er brauchte, um das Verbrechen zu begehen. Der seltsame Knall könnte wahrscheinlich vom Kampf zwischen Corwell und Halsey herrühren. Lyney war nicht einmal eine Minute lang im Tunnel. Diese eine Minute hätte Corwell gereicht, um Halsey aus dem Zauberschrank auf der Zuschauerseite zu holen. Ja, der Ausgang des Gedärms zufolge betrat oder verließ inzwischen niemand das Opernhaus. Daher war es unmöglich für ihn, das Gelände zu verlassen. Ganz zu schweigen davon, dass die Zuschauer ihn auf jeden Fall gesehen hätten, wenn er aus dem Zauberschrank gekommen wäre.
What's wrong, Traveler? Are you still having trouble figuring things out?
Um Himmels Willen ist denn Halsey verschwunden?
I see how it is. So this was all just a bluff. And here I thought you had something to show for it. But it seems you're still far from the truth.
Look, since we're at a dead end, why not consider a different track? Just like the trick as it transpired, the end result must have been utterly different from the magician's initial design.
If only we knew how Halsey disappeared.
Well, that would be nice, but the tunnel only has 3 exits, and none of them seem very likely. And it's not like this is a magic trick where you can just make a real live person disappear. You know, like you did from that water tank, Lynette.
Zauberei aus dem Wassertank verschwinden. Könnte es sein, dass das Wasser... Könnte es das Wasser gewesen sein?
Excuse my interruption, dear opponents, but do you not see that the crowd is growing impatient? There is no greater sin in this opera house than an awkward delay in the performance.
Du brauchst mir hier keinen Stress machen.
If the defense is unable to make further effective arguments, we will move on to the next stage of the trial.
Stop!
Linny was not in the tunnel at that moment, which gave our criminal ample time.
Wir könnten mal vorher wissen, dass Lyney keine Möglichkeit hatte, das Verbrechen zu machen. Das ist ja eindeutig.
The sound we heard may have come from a clash between the missing Halsey and the criminal. The deceased's name is Cowell, Linny's assistant. He...
So, und wohin ist die Vermisste verschwunden? Ja, hier, in das Wasserdingens.
The vase was not broken by chance. It was used to cover important evidence. The water.
Wahrscheinlich schon... Ja, ich sag dir, da ist irgendwas aufgeschwungen. Da ist nämlich noch ein 4. Eingang.
Paimon gets it! It all comes together if Halsey disappeared instead of being kidnapped. Lynette escaped from the water tank, vanishing gradually and leaving only clothes behind. If there's a similar method where a person could be transformed into water...
Just a moment, please. I do hope you know how preposterous you sound at the moment.
Wieso, kennst du dein eigenes Element nicht, oder was?
How could a person ever be transformed into water? This is reality we're talking about here, not some magic trick.
Ich bitte um eine Durchsuchung von Corvells persönlichen Gegenständen. Vielleicht werden wir etwas finden.
Must we really? I should think that of anyone. Your friend Linny already knows this truth very
Ja,
well.
also er hat ein Lächeln im Gesicht, ne?
Magic tricks are ultimately just illusions and misdirection. But Halsey's disappearance is very real.
Even so, I trust the traveler's judgment. The truth must be out there somewhere. Perhaps some new line of reasoning may open if we try to gather all the focal points that don't make sense. Since Cal was the deceased, we haven't placed much attention on him. But given that we aren't making much progress with the case, it wouldn't hurt to have a look at his belongings, would it?
People really do come up with all sorts of harebrained schemes when at the end of their rope. The way I see it, your suggestion that we broaden the scope of our investigation is nothing but a tactic for stalling the trial.
Das ist eine sehr schlechte Verliererin.
Nevertheless, I believe that this is a reasonable request on the part of an attorney. Since the trial does indeed appear to be at an impasse, I believe that additional evidence may help us make more progress. Guards, please step into the lounge and examine the personal effects of the deceased, Cowell.
Kurz darauf kehren die Gedärme mit Neuigkeiten
We are
zurück.
still examining the items, but we have already made critical progress that we feel must be shared with everyone post-haste.
Esmond, dann hau mal raus.
We discovered several test tubes of fluid within Cowell's baggage, each labeled separately.
Okay.
The notebook in his backpack claims that these fluids are... water from the primordial sea.
Okay.
The primordial sea.
The note's contents also indicate that
Yeah.
Cowell belonged to an organization that sells illegal drugs and that he had an accomplice. The notebook has many entries concerning safe usage of these fluids, in which the keyword dissolve appears many times.
Gut, also ich frage mich jetzt gerade eben schon wieder, wieso durchsucht man die Scheiße nicht direkt vorher? Da muss man doch mal drauf kommen, dass man sich die ganzen Sachen, die der Verstorbene bei sich hat, auch mal anguckt. Solche Opfer, ey.
One of these tubes was labeled Opera Epiclese, along with yesterday's date. It is empty. The notes also state that these dissolution properties work exclusively on people from Fontaine. It's likely that Halsey was chosen as some sort of test subject.
Okay. Sie haben also Halsey aufgelöst.
As such, we believe that the defense's hypothesis is, in fact, supported by sufficient evidence.
You've got to be kidding! People dissolving into water?
Could something so ridiculous actually be true?
Das ist interessant, ja. Macht das natürlich auch gleich mehr Sinn, warum da die Kleidung liegt, eine Pfütze Wasser und als Tarnung die Vase kaputtgeschlagen wurde. Das Wasser kam nicht aus der Vase, es kam aus der... oh, das ist Halcyon.
Wait a moment. This reminds me of a certain prophecy, but it's just a coincidence, isn't it?
Huh. If people can become water, does that mean that the water tank's real use was as a means to hide water stains? And if Cowell was targeting that girl... Wait just a minute. Could that mean... You two, with me, quick!
Demoiselle, wait! What about your partners?
Let's go. Just trust me.
Order! Order!
Oh.
It is undeniable that further examination of the deceased's personal effects has yielded some surprising results. But still, let us assume that these clues are indeed authentic, albeit with the understanding that Ms. Halsey has yet to be found. Guards, please continue examining the items along these lines. Mr. Linney, it appears your hypothesis is supported by the evidence, so please continue speaking.
Of course. Thank you, Your Honor. If we uphold this hypothesis, I believe that many of this case's seemingly unrelated clues can be connected together.
Right! Like the metal hook! That one didn't make sense at all. Let's think about this. Cowell's methods must have something to do with that water from the primordial sea.
Scheiß Haken jetzt auch noch. Okay, Wasser des Urmeers. Eine Flüssigkeit, die von den Gedärmen in Corbels Gepäck gefunden wurde. Sie scheint die Fähigkeit zu haben, Menschen aus Fontaine in Wasser aufzulösen. Wer ist der derzeitige Hauptverdächtige? Ja, nach wie
The
vor
deceased's name is Cowell, Linny's assistant.
Also welches Hilfsmittel hatte der Täter zur Verfügung, um den Zeitpunkt des Auflösens zu koordinieren? Vielleicht dann hier den Haken.
Now it seems like the hook rope was not meant for another magic trick, but was instead some form of triggering mechanism.
Welches Hilfsmittel hatte der Täter? Mit welchem hat er hier mit
The
dem Wasser?
water from the primordial sea should already have been prepped before Halsey entered the magic box.
Na, damit hat er sie aufgelöst. So, mit welchem Hilfsmittel hat der Täter den Mechanismus, mit dem das Verbrechen begangen wurde, versteckt?
Lynette was in the magic box on stage the entire time. Did she... I remember there was something else within the inner layer of that box.
Damit vielleicht? Ja. Da war nämlich noch was anderes in der Box drin. Wir kommen der ganzen Geschichte näher.
It's Ace Detective Paimon's time to shine again! In the original plan, Cowell would tamper with the water tank rope and the number selector securing his target. When the magic box containing Halsey was lowered, the metal hook would retract gradually and pierce the balloon at the top of the box. When the balloon attached to the box popped, the water from the primordial seed inside it would pour down and dissolve Halsey. Afterward, Cowell would enter the tunnel and break the flower vase to conceal the water inside the tunnel, with the remaining evidence being covered up by the water tank on stage. But he encountered something unexpected in the tunnel, and wound up being fatally hit by the same water tank he meant to use to cover his tracks.
Huh. That does make sense.
That actually links together a lot of the more confusing pieces of evidence.
Oh dear, what do I do? Even I think they sound convincing now. Have I falsely accused an innocent person? What a humiliation.
Now, it seems like the only point of contention remaining is the exact circumstances that led to Cal's death. His notes mentioned he had an accomplice who could be related to the situation.
Was hat gerade für einen Hinweis gekriegt?
On that note, the guards have just contacted me indicating that they uncovered new evidence. I shall now invite him on stage to share it with us.
Und? Nee.
Thank you, Your Honor. We were just inspecting the luggage of the other people involved in this case. And we found an identical sample of the water from the primordial sea among Linny's personal effects.
What?
Was?
That can't be.
Oh, I see. Well, how wonderfully comedic to have your own counterattack only to come back and wound you.
Was? So, hä? Wie kommt die jetzt in Lunays Gepäck?
Does this not clear all doubt? My dear citizens, my loyal audience, allow me to present my reasoning and bring this performance to a swift close.
Diese blöde Blenderin, ey, Junge.
Linny did not need to take part in the dissolution of the young woman at all. Indeed, he did leave the scene via the vent. Having made modifications to the props beforehand, his accomplice Cowell then caused Halsey to vanish using the water from the primordial sea. But upon his return, in cruel avarice, Linny desired sole credit and prepared to do away with his partner in crime. Ultimately, he knocked Cowell out, and the tool meant to cover the crime up also became a murder weapon. Now, as much as I regret having come to such a viciously straightforward conclusion, it does seem that the famed Fatui is quite the cold-blooded and ruthless organization. Am I right, Mr. Linny?
We've used up all the evidence we collected. There's no way for us to make a rebuttal here. Is this the end of the road?
Oh no! Paimon can't think of anything either. It doesn't look like there's any way around this. Seems using the water as new evidence was too good a move. Why did this have to happen now?
Andere ist weggegangen, ne? Die Navia.
I think we've all seen enough now, and we have ample witnesses to my flawless reasoning. I believe this is indeed the finale. Now then, my good, noble Chief Justice, should we not, in your view, move...
Excuse me, everyone, but I must interject.
Okay, nee, also sie war es jetzt eben nicht. Also sie hat noch irgendwas anderes gecheckt.
Miss, I must ask you not to shout and to respect the ongoing legal proceedings.
Oh, come on. Don't be hasty. I have a good reason for interrupting, you know. Now, would anyone here like to take a little break from all this debate and see a little magic? I'll show you an amazing trick. One that can bring a young woman who has disappeared back in the flesh, right before your very eyes. Please, do the honors, Mr. Linny, if you would be so kind.
What in the world is she saying?
No offense, miss, but miracles like that are beyond my scope as a magician.
Come on now, don't be silly. Magic is all about misdirection, isn't it? It often conceals the truth while presenting a fascinating illusion.
Okay, jetzt steige ich gerade aus. So, jetzt ist gelaufen, Feierabend. Nee.
But once everyone believes the illusion, can't magic reveal the truth to them once again? And wouldn't such a trick be the most marvelous finale to today's performance? Come on, Lenny and Lynette. Give it another go. Don't worry. Spina di Rasula has made the necessary arrangements on your behalf.
Okay.
But, as the magic makers and stars of the show, I think I should leave the final performance to you.
I understand.
Was? War kein Klatsch, das war ein Schnipsen. Erstens, ja.
Voila!
Sorry for the interruption.
Huh?
Wait, isn't that Halsey? So the whole thing about people dissolving wasn't true after all?
To be clear, I'm only here because this person told me that if I testified, the merit of doing so would lessen my sentence.
Okay, die hat sie irgendwo gefunden. Aber wo hat... Hä? Abia! Erkläre dich bitte.
I was hiding outside this room listening to the proceedings because I was afraid that I would be the one put on trial. I was just feeling happy that no one had noticed me, and then before I knew it, she caught me.
That'll teach you to underestimate us three.
Where should I begin? I'm sorry. I'm the one who killed Cowl. I admit it.
Ja, badababam. Scheiße. Alter, was für ein Mindfuck geht denn jetzt hier ab? Wir zerbrechen uns hier wir zermartern uns das Gehirn. Und jetzt ist alles, was wir gedacht haben, falsch. Hier, die da oben auch. Also es ist ein Doppelfail für unsere Seite und für die andere Seite. Aber wir haben nach Fakten und Tatsachen halt eben gehandelt, die uns vorlagen. Und die andere hat sich einfach irgendwas ausgedacht, ne? Oh.